Hello and welcome to the Drowsy Architect. We tell the stories of the world's greatest buildings, slowly, gently, as bedtime stories for grown-ups. The narration is calm, the music is soft, and if you fall asleep before the end, that is exactly what we are here for. Tonight, we travel to India, to the banks of the Yamuna River, where a grieving emperor spent 22 years building the most beautiful tomb on earth. A love letter in marble and moonlight that still glows 400 years later. Now settle in and let us begin. Close your eyes and let me take you somewhere far away tonight. We are going to India, to the city of Agra, on the banks of a wide, slow-moving river called the Yamuna. It is late, very late, and the city has gone quiet. The rickshaws have stopped. The market stalls are shuttered. The narrow streets, which during the day are a riot of color and noise and spice-scented heat, are still now empty, cool. And there, rising from the riverbank at the edge of the old city, is something that looks as if it does not quite belong to this world. The Taj Mahal. You have seen photographs, of course, everyone has, but nothing at all, prepares you for the real thing. It is not merely beautiful, it is not merely large, it is something else entirely, something that seems to exist outside of time, outside of the ordinary rules that govern stone and mortar and human ambition. In the moonlight, it glows not white exactly, but something softer, something between silver and pearl and the palest blue you have ever seen. The great dome catches the light and holds it, as if the marble itself is breathing. The four minarets stand like sentinels at the corners, perfectly symmetrical, perfectly still, and the long reflecting pool that stretches out before it, that famous, impossibly beautiful pool, mirrors everything, dome for dome, minaret for minaret, star for star. It is breathtaking, and it is a tomb. That is what you must remember as we begin tonight. This is not a palace, not a temple, not a monument to power or conquest. It is a grave, the most beautiful grave ever built, created by a man who was so consumed by grief that he poured an empire's wealth into the earth and raised this impossible thing from his tears. So settle in, let the day fall away, and let me tell you the story of the Taj Mahal. It is a story about love and loss, and the strange, magnificent things that grief can build. And if you fall asleep along the way, that is perfectly fine. The Taj Mahal will still be there in the morning. It has waited 400 years. It can wait a little longer. We should begin, as all good stories begin, with the world as it was before. India in the 16th century was a land of extraordinary diversity and extraordinary wealth. The subcontinent was home to hundreds of millions of people, speaking dozens of languages, worshipping in 1,000 different ways, farming the rich alluvial plains of the Ganges and the Indus, trading with China and Persia and Arabia and the distant kingdoms of Europe. And ruling over much of this vast land were the Mughals. They had arrived from the north, from the wind-scoured steppes of Central Asia in 1526, when a warlord named Babur crossed the Khyber Pass with a small army and a large ambition. Babur was a remarkable man, a poet, a memoirist, a connoisseur of gardens, and a warrior of terrifying effectiveness. He was a direct descendant of Timur on his father's side and of Genghis Khan on his mother's. Carrying the blood of two of history's greatest conquerors in his veins, he had been a king since the age of 12, ruler of the tiny Central Asian kingdom of Fergana, and he had spent his youth fighting and losing and fighting again. Driven by a restless ambition, that the mountains of Afghanistan could not contain. He defeated the Sultan of Delhi at the Battle of Panipat in 1526, with a force outnumbered nearly 10-1, using a new and terrifying weapon that had never before been seen on an Indian battlefield: gunpowder. The matchlock muskets and cannons of Babur's army shattered the Sultan's war elephants and routed his cavalry. India would never be the same. Babur founded a dynasty that would rule India for the next 3 centuries, but he did not live long enough to enjoy his conquest. He died in 1530, just 4 years after his great victory, and was buried, as he had wished, in a simple garden in Kabul, far from the heat and dust of India, beneath the open sky of the mountains he had loved. But his descendants would build something extraordinary on the foundations he had laid. His son Humayun lost the empire and won it back. His grandson Akbar transformed it from a military conquest into a civilization, and his great-great-grandson Shah Jahan would give it its most perfect expression, in marble. Our story begins not with stone, but with a boy. His name was Prince Khurram, and he was born in the year 1592 in the city of Lahore into the most powerful family in the world. His grandfather was Akbar the Great, the Mughal emperor who ruled over nearly all of India, a domain of 100 million souls, stretching from the snow-capped peaks of the Himalayas to the warm, green coasts of the Indian Ocean, an empire richer than anything in Europe, richer than the Ottomans, richer than Ming China. The Mughal court dripped with gold and jewels and silk and spices, and it considered itself, with some justification, the center of the civilized world. The Mughal dynasty was extraordinary. They were descendants of both Genghis Khan and Tamerlane, warriors from the Central Asian steppes who had conquered their way into the Indian subcontinent and built something remarkable, not merely an empire of swords and taxes, but an empire of art, of poetry, of architecture and gardens and music and miniature painting. The Mughals believed that beauty was not a luxury, but a duty. That a ruler who did not create beautiful things was not truly a ruler at all. And young Khurram, this boy born into the heart of this glittering world, seemed to embody that belief from the very beginning. He was handsome, he was intelligent, he was his grandfather's favorite, so much so that Akbar insisted the boy be raised in his own household, close to the throne, close to power. Imagine him, a boy of perhaps 10 or 12, wandering the red sandstone corridors of Agra Fort, the great fortress palace that overlooked the Yamuna River, the same river that would one day carry the reflection of the Taj Mahal. He would have seen artisans at work everywhere, calligraphers bending over sheets of hand-pressed paper, stone carvers chipping delicate patterns into marble, gardeners tending the formal charbagh gardens. Those symmetrical, four-quartered gardens that the Mughals had brought from Persia, representing the 4 rivers of paradise. This was his world, beauty and power, woven together like threads in a carpet. But we should pause here and speak of Akbar himself, because you cannot understand the Taj Mahal without understanding the world that made it possible. Akbar the Great ruled for nearly 50 years. He was, by any measure, one of the most remarkable rulers in human history. He could not read or write, and yet he built one of the most literate and cultured courts the world had ever seen. He was a Muslim ruler of a predominantly Hindu land, and yet he created a policy of religious tolerance so radical that it astonished Europeans who visited his court. He married Hindu princesses. He abolished the jizya, the tax on non-Muslims. He hosted debates between Jesuits and Sufis and Hindu scholars and Jain monks, and he listened, genuinely listened. He was trying to understand God, not through one tradition, but through all of them. And he built, oh, how he built. Fatehpur Sikri is the most famous, that ghostly red city 37 kilometers from Agra, built to celebrate the birth of his heir, and abandoned after just 14 years when the water supply failed. But he also transformed Agra fort from a rough military stronghold into a magnificent palace complex, layered with courtyards and audience halls and private chambers of increasing intimacy and beauty. The Mughal approach to architecture was distinctive. They drew from Persian traditions, the pointed arches, the domes, the formal gardens. They drew from Indian traditions, the carved stone screens, the intricate surface decoration, the use of red sandstone, and they blended these into something entirely new, something that was neither Persian nor Indian but Mughal, a synthesis, a conversation between cultures expressed in stone. This is the tradition that young Prince Khurram inherited. This is the architectural language he learned to speak, and when the time came for him to build his greatest work, he would speak it fluently. Khurram's father, Jahangir, was a different kind of ruler than Akbar. Where Akbar had been disciplined and strategic, Jahangir was passionate and impulsive. He was a connoisseur of painting and wine, a man who appreciated beauty with the intensity of an addict. He kept detailed journals, the Chuzakai Jahangiri, in which he described the color of flowers and the behavior of animals and the precise shade of a sunset over the Himalayan foothills. He catalogued the weight of a captured rhinoceros. He recorded the flavor of a mango from Kabul. He described, with genuine scientific curiosity, the mating habits of cranes. These journals are among the most remarkable personal documents of the 17th century. Intimate, observant, often beautiful. But Jahangir was also capable of cruelty. He blinded a political rival. He executed men who displeased him. He struggled with wine and with opium, addictions that clouded his judgment and weakened his grip on power as he aged. His wife, the formidable Jahan, gradually assumed more and more of the actual business of governing, leaving Jahangir to his gardens and his journals and his cups of wine. Jahangir also had a troubled relationship with his sons. Khurram was not his eldest, but he was the most capable, the most ambitious, the most dangerous, and Jahangir, who loved his son but feared his ambition, kept him close, rewarding him with military commands and then pulling him back when the rewards became too great. It was a complicated dance. Father and son, emperor and heir, love and suspicion, and running through all of it, like a golden thread, was Khurram's devotion to Arjumand, the girl he had seen at the Meena Bazaar and never forgotten. And then, in the year 1607, something happened that would change everything. Prince Khurram was 15 years old. He was visiting a royal bazaar, a Meena Bazaar, a special kind of market held within the palace grounds, where the women of the court would set up stalls and sell silks and jewels to one another. It was a social occasion as much as a commercial one, a chance for the royal household to mingle in relative informality. And there, behind one of the stalls, he saw a girl. Her name was Arjumand Banu Begum. She was 14 years old. She was the daughter of a powerful nobleman and the granddaughter of a man who served as one of the empire's most important ministers. She was, by all accounts, extraordinarily beautiful, but it was not merely her beauty that captivated the young prince. There was something else, something in the way she carried herself, something in her eyes. The court poets would later write that it was love at first sight, and perhaps it was, or perhaps that is simply the way court poets write. But what we know for certain is this: from that moment on, Prince Khurram wanted no one else. The court chronicler Abdul Hamid Lahori later wrote that Shah Jahan's love for Mumtaz began at that moment, that his heart was captured in an instant, that he found peace in gazing upon her face. It is the language of poetry, but behind the poetry, something real was happening. He went to his father, Emperor Jahangir, and asked for permission to marry Arjumand. His father consulted the court astrologers. The astrologers studied the stars, and they found the alignment favorable, but they said the wedding must wait. The stars were not yet ready. The prince would have to be patient. And so he waited. 5 years, 5 long years, from 1607 to 1612, carrying this love inside him like a flame in a lantern. He married another woman during this time, a political match arranged by the court. But his heart belonged to Arjumand. It had belonged to her since that first glance across the Meena Bazaar. The wedding finally took place on the 8th of May, 1612, and it was magnificent. The celebrations lasted for days. There were fireworks and feasts and music that drifted across the Yamuna River and disappeared into the warm Indian night. The court poets composed verses. The astrologers declared the union blessed, and Prince Khurram, who was 20 years old now, tall and confident, and already proving himself a formidable military commander, looked at his bride and felt that the world was exactly as it should be. He gave her a new name, Mumtaz Mahal, the chosen one of the palace. It was a title of honor, a declaration to the court and the empire that this woman, above all others, was the one he had chosen, not merely as a wife, as a partner, as the other half of himself. And from that day forward, she was never far from his side. This is unusual, you understand, deeply unusual. Mughal emperors and princes typically had large harems, many wives, many concubines. Love was considered a private matter, separate from the business of ruling. But Khurram and Mumtaz were different. She was not merely his wife. She was his companion, his counselor, his confidant. She traveled with him on military campaigns, even when she was pregnant, which was often. She sat beside him when he received dignitaries. She whispered advice in his ear when difficult decisions needed to be made. The court noticed, everyone noticed, this was not ordinary royal affection. This was something deeper, something rarer. The years that followed were turbulent ones, and to understand them, you must understand the Mughal system of succession, or rather, the lack of one. The Mughals had no law of primogeniture. There was no automatic right of the eldest son to inherit. Instead, the succession was decided by war when an emperor died, or when he grew weak enough for his sons to sense an opportunity. The princes would fight. Literally, armies would march. Brothers would kill brothers, the last one standing, the strongest, the most ruthless, the most politically astute, would take the throne. It was brutal, it was efficient in its way. The Mughals called it the War of the Roses, though their version made the English original look like a schoolyard quarrel, and it shaped the character of every prince who grew up in the Mughal court. From childhood, they knew that one day they would have to fight for everything or die. Prince Khurram was no exception. He fought wars for his father, brilliant, successful campaigns in the Deccan and Rajasthan that earned him glory and territory and the admiration of the army. His father rewarded him lavishly, with titles and jewels and the revenue of rich provinces. Shah Jahan, the king of the world, was a title Jahangir gave his favorite son long before Khurram actually became king. But Khurram also fought against his father. In 1622, feeling that his position as heir was being undermined by a rival at court, a powerful general named Mahabat Khan, Khurram raised the flag of rebellion. It was a disaster. His forces were defeated. He was driven into exile, wandering the subcontinent with Mumtaz and his small household for years, from Bengal to the Deccan and back, pursued by his father's agents, never quite captured but never quite free. Through all of it, Mumtaz was there, beside him, always pregnant, often exhausted, certainly, but there. She bore children in military camps and roadside shelters. She watched her husband rage against his fortune and plot his return to favor. She counseled patience. She counseled wisdom. She was, by all accounts, the steadier of the two. In 1627, Jahangir died, and the succession war began in earnest. Khurram's brother, Shah, claimed the throne. Khurram marched on Agra with an army at his back. There were battles, there were betrayals. Shah was captured, blinded, and eventually executed. So were several other potential rivals. The Mughal succession was not a gentle process. And in February 1628, Prince Khurram ascended to the throne. He took the name Shah Jahan, King of the World, and Mumtaz Mahal, the girl from the Meena Bazaar, became the empress of the most powerful and wealthy empire on earth. Shah Jahan was 36 years old. He was at the height of his power. His empire was rich beyond imagining. The Mughal treasury overflowed with diamonds and rubies and sapphires and bolts of silk and mountains of gold. He controlled trade routes that connected China to Persia to Europe. His armies were vast. His court was the most splendid in the world. And he loved his wife. That had not changed. If anything, it had deepened. 19 years of marriage, 14 children together, wars survived, exiles endured, and still, she was the center of his world. The court poet Abu Talib Kalim described Shah Jahan's devotion in terms that were extraordinary even by the standards of Mughal love poetry. He wrote that the emperor's love for Mumtaz was like the love of the moth for the flame, all-consuming, willing to be destroyed rather than to be separated. He wrote that the world itself existed only as a stage upon which their love was played. Poets exaggerate. That is what poets do. But the direction of the exaggeration tells you something true. Shah Jahan built for her a pleasure garden called the Shalimar Bagh in Kashmir, a terraced paradise of fountains and pavilions high in the Himalayan foothills, where the air was cool and the mountains were close, and the stars at night seemed near enough to touch. He took her there in the summers to escape the brutal heat of the plains. They walked together among the roses and the flowing water. They sat together in the open pavilions and watched the sun set behind the mountains. Years later, after everything, a visitor to Kashmir described the Shalimar Garden as a place where happiness had once lived. It is a heartbreaking description because happiness did live there for a little while. But the world is not kind to love stories, not forever. Let us pause here in this moment of happiness and breathe. Shah Jahan and Mumtaz Mahal had 19 years together. 19 years. It sounds like a long time, but it passes so quickly. The days become months, become years, become decades, and suddenly you are looking back at something that feels like yesterday. They had 14 children. Think about that number, 14. 7 survived to adulthood, which was a reasonable survival rate for the era, but still means that they buried 7 children together. 7 small graves. 7 losses that must have drawn them closer, that must have made their bond stronger and more desperate and more precious with each passing year. Mumtaz was more than a wife. She was a political force. She served as a trusted advisor to the emperor, reviewing state documents, recommending appointments, mediating between factions at court. She was the keeper of the imperial seal, the Mua user, which meant that no document had legal force without her approval. This was extraordinary power for anyone in the Mughal court, let alone for a woman. She was also generous. The chronicles record her charitable works, her donations to mosques and madrasas and the families of deceased soldiers. She was known for advocating on behalf of the poor and the widowed. She was, by the standards of her time and place, a good person, not merely a beautiful face, not merely a beloved wife, a person of substance and conscience. And she loved Shah Jahan. That much seems clear from every source. Theirs was not a one-sided devotion. It was mutual, complete. The kind of love that makes poets reach for metaphors that they know are inadequate, but try anyway. 19 years, it was not enough. It is never enough. In the year 1631, Mumtaz Mahal accompanied Shah Jahan on a military campaign to the Deccan Plateau in southern India. She was pregnant with their 14th child. She had done this before, many times, traveling with the emperor despite the hardship and the danger. But this time was different. The labor was long, too long, and something went wrong. On the 17th of June, 1631, in a military camp far from Agra, far from the marble palaces and the cool gardens and the river she knew so well, Mumtaz Mahal died. She was 38 years old. She had been his wife for 19 years. Before she died, Mumtaz Mahal is said to have made several requests of her husband. The accounts vary, and some may be later embellishments, but the most commonly cited version includes these wishes. First, that he should not marry again. This was unusual. Mughal emperors routinely took new wives, but Mumtaz asked, and Shah Jahan agreed. He never remarried. For the remaining 35 years of his life, he kept that promise. Second, that he should care for their children. She had borne 14 children, 7 of whom survived to adulthood. She wanted them protected, provided for. Shah Jahan did his best, though the Mughal system of succession would eventually turn her sons against each other in ways she could not have foreseen. Third, that he should visit her tomb on the anniversary of her death, every year, without fail. And fourth, the most famous request of all, that he should build for her a tomb so beautiful that the world would never forget her. Whether she actually said these words, we cannot know. The dying do not always have the strength for speeches, and court chroniclers had their own reasons for shaping the narrative in certain ways. But the story has endured because it feels true, because it captures something essential about this love and about the extraordinary act of creation that followed. What happened to Shah Jahan in the days and weeks that followed has become the stuff of legend. The court chroniclers describe a man destroyed. He refused to eat. He refused to hold court. He refused to wear his royal robes or his jewels. He went into his chambers and did not come out for days. When he finally emerged, his hair, which had been dark and thick, had turned gray. His back was bent. He looked, they said, like an old man. Some accounts say he wept for 2 years. That may be an exaggeration. Court poets specialize in exaggeration, but the grief was real. It was deep. It was the kind of grief that reshapes a person from the inside out, the kind that makes you question everything you thought you knew about the world. And somewhere in that grief, somewhere in the dark depths of that unbearable loss, Shah Jahan made a decision. He would build for Mumtaz Mahal a tomb so beautiful, so perfect, so utterly unlike anything the world had ever seen, that it would stand forever as proof that she had lived, that she had been loved, that love itself was real and powerful and worth all the suffering it brought. He would build the Taj Mahal. But grief alone does not build monuments. Grief needs to be channeled, shaped, given form, and Shah Jahan, even in the depths of his despair, was still an emperor, still a builder, still a man who understood that architecture could say things that words could not. The Mughal tradition of tomb building was already well established. Humayun's tomb in Delhi, built by the emperor's grieving widow in the 1560s, had set the pattern. A grand garden tomb, a symmetrical complex, a central mausoleum surrounded by formal gardens and water channels. It was beautiful. It was influential. It was, in many ways, the ancestor of the Taj Mahal. But Shah Jahan wanted something more, something that went beyond tradition, beyond precedent, beyond anything the Mughal architectural vocabulary had yet produced. He wanted, and this is the only word that captures it, perfection. And so, before a single stone was laid, there were years of planning, years of drawing and modeling and debating and refining. Shah Jahan gathered the finest architects and engineers and craftsmen in his empire, and he set them a challenge that might have seemed impossible. "Build me a building," he said in effect, "that will make the world forget everything else." Now, let us pause here for a moment and consider what it meant to build something in Mughal India. The Mughals were the greatest builders the subcontinent had ever known. Akbar the Great had built Fatehpur Sikri, an entire city carved from red sandstone, and then abandoned it when the water ran out. Jahangir had commissioned exquisite gardens in Kashmir, terraced hillsides of roses and fountains and plane trees. Shah Jahan himself had already begun transforming the Red Fort in Delhi and the palace complex at Agra into showcases of white marble and precious stones. But what Shah Jahan envisioned for Mumtaz's tomb was beyond anything that had come before. It was not merely a building, it was an idea made physical, a poem written in stone, a love letter that would outlast the language it was written in. The site he chose was on the southern bank of the Yamuna River, just downstream from Agra Fort. It was a piece of land that belonged to a nobleman named Raja Jai Singh, who was persuaded or compelled to give it up. In return, he received a large mansion elsewhere in the city. Whether he felt the trade was fair is not recorded. The ground was treacherous. The riverbank was sandy and unstable, prone to flooding during the monsoon season. Before a single stone could be placed, the earth itself had to be tamed. The construction began in 1632, and it was enormous. 20,000 workers, that is the number most often cited, and while it may be approximate, the true figure was certainly staggering. Laborers came from across the empire and beyond. Stonemasons and marble carvers from Rajasthan and Gujarat, calligraphers from Persia and Syria, inlay specialists from southern India who knew the ancient art of Pietra Dura, the technique of cutting semi-precious stones into thin slices and setting them into marble like pieces of a puzzle. There were brickmakers who mixed clay and straw and fired their products in kilns that burned day and night. There were lime burners who processed limestone into morite, the binding agent that held the masonry together, in great furnaces that filled the air with acrid smoke. There were scaffolders who built and rebuilt the temporary structures that allowed workers to reach ever greater heights. There were water carriers who hauled leather bags of water from the Yamuna to slake the mortar and quench the workers' thirst. And then there were the specialists, the stone cutters who could split a block of marble along an invisible grain line with a single blow of a mallet, the polishers who spent weeks rubbing a single surface with increasingly fine abrasives until it shone like glass, the geometers who laid out the complex's dimensions using knotted ropes and wooden pegs, and centuries-old mathematical formulas passed down from master to apprentice. There were men who did nothing but operate the enormous ramp system, a great earthen incline that rose gradually as the building rose, allowing materials to be hauled upward on carts pulled by teams of oxen and elephants. There were elephant handlers and ox drivers and rope makers and tool sharpeners. A small city of workers grew up around the construction site, with its own markets and mosques and hospitals. And overseeing it all was a team of architects and engineers whose names have largely been lost to history. The chief architect is believed to have been Ustad Ahmad Lahori, though some scholars dispute this. What is certain is that the design emerged from a collaboration between Shah Jahan himself, who had very specific ideas about what he wanted, and a team of master builders who knew how to make those ideas real. The emperor was deeply involved. This was not a project he delegated and forgot about. He reviewed drawings, he inspected models, he visited the site regularly, walking among the scaffolding and the dust and the noise, checking every detail. This was personal. Every arch, every inscription, every flower carved into the marble was a fragment of his grief made visible. Let us talk about the marble. The Taj Mahal is built from Makrana marble, a luminous white stone quarried in the Aravalli hills of Rajasthan, roughly 250 miles from Agra. Makrana marble is extraordinary. It is not merely white, it is translucent. Hold a thin sheet of it up to the light and you can see through it. A warm, soft glow, like light passing through skin. This is what gives the Taj Mahal its famous ability to change color with the light. At dawn, it appears pink. At midday, blazing white. At sunset, golden. And at night, under the moon, it takes on that unearthly silver-blue glow that makes it look as if it has been carved from frozen moonlight. Getting the marble from Rajasthan to Agra was a monumental task in itself. Blocks weighing several tons had to be dragged overland by teams of oxen and buffalo, across rivers and through forests and over hills, a journey of weeks. A fleet of over 1,000 elephants was reportedly employed in the transport operation. The roads between the quarry and the construction site became permanent thoroughfares, worn smooth by the passage of heavy loads. But the marble was only part of it. The Taj Mahal is not simply white. It is decorated with an astonishing variety of semi-precious stones, 28 different types, sourced from across the known world. Jasper from the Punjab, jade and crystal from China, turquoise from Tibet, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, sapphire from Sri Lanka, carnelian from Arabia, and the stones were not simply set into the surface. They were cut with extraordinary precision into the shapes of flowers and leaves and vines, and inlaid flush with the marble so that the surface remained perfectly smooth to the touch. Consider the precision involved. Some of the inlaid flowers contain 60 or more individual pieces of stone, each cut to a specific shape, each polished to a specific finish, each fitted into a recess carved into the marble with a tolerance of less than a millimeter. A single lily on the surface of Mumtaz's cenotaph might contain pieces of cornelian for the stamens, jade for the leaves, lapis lazuli for the shadows, and mother of pearl for the highlights. And each piece would have been shaped by hand, using tools that were essentially unchanged since antiquity: iron files, abrasive powders, water, patience. This technique, Pietra Dura, had been perfected by Italian craftsmen during the Renaissance, and it is believed that Mughal artisans learned it through contact with European traders and artists who visited the court. The flowers on the Taj Mahal are not random decorations. They are botanically accurate renderings of specific species: irises and tulips and lilies and poppies, each one chosen for its symbolic meaning. In the Mughal tradition, flowers represented paradise. The Garden of Heaven and the Taj Mahal, as a tomb, was meant to be a gateway to that garden. The foundation was the first great challenge. The riverbank soil was soft and wet, and the weight of the marble structure above would be enormous. The engineers solved this by driving wells, deep shafts, into the ground and filling them with stone and rubble and mortar. These wells extended down to solid bedrock, creating a forest of stone columns beneath the surface. A hidden foundation that distributed the weight evenly and resisted the shifting of the river soil. Above this foundation, a massive plinth was raised, a rectangular platform of red sandstone and brick, stretching 300 meters on each side, rising 7 meters above the riverbank. This plinth would become the base upon which the Taj Mahal and its flanking buildings would stand, lifting the entire complex above the flood level of the Yamuna. The plinth itself took years to complete, and it is merely the floor. The water system is one of the Taj Mahal's most ingenious and least appreciated features. The Mughals loved water. They came from Central Asia, a land of heat and dust, and water was precious to them. It meant life, it meant paradise, and in every Mughal garden, water was not merely functional, it was decorative, symbolic, sacred. The water channels of the Taj Mahal complex are fed by a system of remarkable ingenuity. Water is drawn from the Yamuna River by a series of pirs, traditional ox-driven water-lifting devices, that raise the water into a large storage tank. From there, it flows through an underground aqueduct system to a distribution tank on the western side of the complex, and from that tank, it is distributed through the garden channels by a combination of gravity and carefully calibrated clay pipes. The fountains are particularly clever. There are no pumps. The water pressure that drives the fountain jets comes entirely from gravity, from the height difference between the storage tank and the fountain nozzles. Each fountain is fed by a separate copper pipe that runs beneath the garden pathways, and each pipe is calibrated so that all the fountains along a channel spray to exactly the same height. The engineering is simple in principle, but demanding in execution, requiring precise measurements and careful adjustment of pipe diameters. When all the fountains are running and the channels are full and the reflecting pool is still, the effect is mesmerizing. The sound of water is everywhere, gentle, continuous. The sound of a garden breathing, the sound of paradise. Before you reach the Taj Mahal, you must pass through the Great Gate, the Darwaza-i-Roza, the gateway of the tomb, and it is a magnificent building in its own right. It is built of red sandstone, inlaid with white marble and decorated with Quranic inscriptions and geometric patterns. It rises to a height of roughly 30 meters, and its central archway frames the Taj Mahal perfectly. This framing is deliberate. The gate is designed so that when you step through it, the Taj Mahal appears before you in a sudden, dramatic reveal. You cannot see the mausoleum from outside the gate. The walls of the complex block the view, and then you step through. And there it is. This technique, the dramatic reveal, is a hallmark of Mughal architecture. The Mughals understood the power of sequence, of anticipation, of the moment when something hidden becomes visible. They designed their buildings not as isolated objects, but as experiences, journeys through space that build toward a climax. The Great Gate of the Taj Mahal is the final threshold, the moment before the revelation, the last breath before you see something that will change how you think about beauty. The gate also serves a practical purpose. It marks the boundary between the secular world and the sacred precinct. Beyond the gate, no commercial activity is permitted, no noise, no disturbance. The complex is a garden of paradise, and the gate is the entrance to that garden. On the ceiling of the gate's central vault, you can see the remains of a geometric pattern in painted plaster, stars and octagons in blue and gold. Centuries of weathering have faded the colors, but enough remains to suggest the original splendor. This was not a modest entrance. It was a proclamation. You are about to enter the presence of the most beautiful building in the world. Prepare yourself. Now, imagine the building rising. The central structure, the mausoleum itself, is essentially a cube with chamfered corners, sitting on the plinth at the northern end, closest to the river. Each face of the cube features a massive arched doorway, an iwan, that creates a sense of depth and shadow even from a distance. The iwans are framed by calligraphic inscriptions from the Quran, verses about paradise and judgment and divine mercy, carved into the marble in a flowing Nastaliq script. Above the cube rises the dome, and this is where the engineering becomes truly remarkable. The dome is not one dome, it is two, an inner dome, which creates the ceiling of the burial chamber below, and an outer dome, which creates the silhouette we see from outside. Between them is a gap of roughly 8 meters, a hollow space that serves both structural and aesthetic purposes. The inner dome keeps the ceiling at a human-friendly height, intimate and close. The outer dome soars upward, creating the dramatic, bulbous profile that has become the Taj Mahal's most recognizable feature. The shape of the dome is sometimes described as an onion dome, but that is not quite accurate. It is more precisely a guava dome, or an amrad, a gently swelling curve that narrows toward the top before culminating in the finial. The shape is found throughout Mughal and Persian architecture, but nowhere is it executed with such purity and grace as here. The dome rests on a cylindrical drum, a vertical wall that lifts it above the roofline of the cube below. This drum is essential. Without it, the dome would seem to squat heavily on the building. With it, the dome appears to float, to lift, to reach upward toward the sky. It is an optical illusion, a trick of proportion, and it works perfectly. At the very top of the dome sits a finial, a gilded bronze ornament in the shape of a lotus flower supporting a crescent moon. The lotus represents purity. The crescent moon represents Islam. Together, they crown the building like a prayer made visible. The 4 minarets deserve our attention as well. They stand at the 4 corners of the plinth, not attached to the mausoleum itself, but set slightly apart. This separation is deliberate. It prevents the minarets from overwhelming the central structure, and it creates the visual frame that makes the Taj Mahal so extraordinarily photogenic from any angle. Each minaret is 40 meters tall, rising like a slender white candle from the corners of the plinth. Each is divided into 3 sections by 2 balconies. Each is capped by a small domed pavilion, a chhatri that echoes the shape of the great dome above. And each, and this is the part that amazes engineers, leans slightly outward, not from settling or structural failure. By design, they were built with a deliberate outward tilt, so that if an earthquake ever brought one down, it would fall away from the mausoleum rather than onto it. Think about that. 400 years ago, the builders of the Taj Mahal were planning for earthquakes. They were thinking not just about how to make something beautiful, but about how to make something that would survive. Inside the mausoleum, the atmosphere changes. You step through one of the great arched doorways and find yourself in a space that is at once intimate and vast. The walls are white marble, but not plain. They are covered with carved relief panels, flowers and vines flowing upward in graceful arabesques, and with Pietra Dura inlay that catches whatever light filters through the marble screens that cover the windows. These screens, jali screens, are carved from single slabs of marble. Each one is a work of art in itself, geometric patterns of interlocking stars and hexagons, cut so finely that the stone looks like lace. They filter the harsh Indian sunlight into soft, dappled patterns that move across the floor as the day progresses, transforming the interior into a kind of sundial of shadow and light. At the center of the main chamber, you see 2 cenotaphs, 2 carved marble tombs. The larger one is Shah Jahan's, the smaller one, placed slightly to the south, is Mumtaz Mahal's. Her cenotaph is inscribed with the 99 names of God, and with a phrase that translates roughly as, "He is everlasting, He is sufficient." These cenotaphs are not the actual grave, those are below, in a simple crypt at ground level, aligned precisely north-south, facing Mecca, as Islamic tradition requires. Mumtaz's cenotaph is decorated with flowers, carved and inlaid flowers, dozens of them, each petal a piece of precious stone, jasper, onyx, carnelian, lapis lazuli, fitted together with such precision that you cannot feel the joins with your fingertips. The craftsmanship is almost impossibly fine. It is the work of human hands, and yet it seems beyond what human hands should be able to achieve. There is one more detail of the interior that deserves our attention. The screen, the marble lattice screen that surrounds the 2 cenotaphs. It is, quite simply, one of the most extraordinary pieces of stone carving ever created. The screen is octagonal in plan, roughly 6 feet tall, and every panel is carved from a single slab of marble. The pattern is a flowing arabesque of flowers and vines, so intricate that the stone looks as if it were woven rather than carved. The lattice work is so fine that light passes through it, casting lacework shadows on the cenotaphs below. Each panel took a master carver months to complete. One wrong chisel stroke, one moment of inattention, and the entire slab would have to be discarded and started again. The original screen was even more lavish. When the tomb was first completed, the cenotaphs were surrounded by a screen of gold, studded with precious stones, but Shah Jahan himself ordered it replaced with the marble screen we see today, reportedly because he feared the gold would attract thieves. The emperor, it seems, understood that even in a monument to eternal love, practical considerations have their place. The gardens were as carefully planned as the building itself. The Mughal garden tradition, the Charbagh, divides the garden into 4 equal quadrants, 4 quarters, representing the 4 rivers of paradise described in the Quran, rivers of water, milk, wine and honey. The gardens of the Taj Mahal follow this pattern, but on an enormous scale. The main garden stretches from the Great Gate at the southern end to the plinth of the mausoleum at the northern end, roughly 300 meters. It is divided into 4 quarters by 2 intersecting water channels, lined with marble, fed by fountains. At the intersection, the center of the garden, is a raised marble platform with a reflecting pool. And this is where the geometry becomes poetic, because the Taj Mahal sits not at the center of the garden, but at the far end, at the edge, where the garden meets the river. This means that the building serves as a kind of backdrop, a shimmering presence at the end of a long, green corridor of trees and water and flowers. The reflecting pool captures the Taj Mahal's image and extends it toward the viewer, doubling its presence. On a still day, with the water absolutely calm, the reflection is so perfect that you cannot tell where the real building ends and the mirror begins. It is disorienting. It is magical. It was designed to be exactly this. The garden design also had a spiritual dimension. In Islamic tradition, a garden is not merely a pleasant place. It is an image of paradise. The Quran describes paradise as gardens beneath which rivers flow, gardens of eternal bliss, gardens where the righteous will dwell forever. The Charbagh, with its 4 divisions and its flowing water and its flowering trees, was a physical representation of this promise, and the Taj Mahal, standing at the edge of this garden paradise, was the gateway, the threshold, the place where the earthly world met the divine. The original plantings would have been spectacular: roses from Persia, narcissus from Kashmir, fruit trees heavy with mangoes and pomegranates and citrus. The air would have been thick with fragrance. The garden would have been a feast for every sense: sight and smell and sound and touch. The marble paths would have been warm under bare feet. The grass would have been soft and cool in the shade of the trees. And everywhere, the sound of water, trickling, splashing, flowing. Walking through the gardens of the Taj Mahal, you are not merely walking through a landscape. You are walking through a theology. Every tree and every fountain and every marble channel has a meaning. The cypress trees, which never shed their leaves, represent eternity. The fruit trees represent the abundance of paradise. The water represents the rivers of heaven. And the tomb itself, standing at the northern end, facing the direction of prayer, represents the final destination. The place where the journey ends. The place where the beloved waits. The trees in the garden were originally fruit trees and flowering trees, cypress for mourning, fruit trees for life, planted in strict rows. Over the centuries, many of the original plantings have been replaced, and today the gardens are maintained with a mixture of traditional and modern species. But the bones are the same. The channels still flow. The fountains still rise and fall. The geometry still holds. The complex is more than just the mausoleum and the gardens. On either side of the Taj Mahal, flanking it symmetrically, stand 2 large buildings of red sandstone. To the west is a mosque, a functioning mosque oriented toward Mecca, where prayers were offered for the soul of Mumtaz Mahal. To the east is its mirror image, an identical building called the Jawab. The answer: the Jawab is not a mosque. It was built purely for symmetry, to balance the composition, to ensure that when you stand at the southern gate and look north, the Taj Mahal sits perfectly centered between 2 identical flanking structures. This obsession with symmetry runs through the entire design. Every element on the left is matched by an identical element on the right. Every garden path has a twin. Every fountain has a counterpart. The whole complex is bilaterally symmetrical, around a central north-south axis, with one single, deliberate exception. Shah Jahan's cenotaph. When Mumtaz Mahal was buried, her cenotaph was placed at the exact center of the burial chamber, perfectly centered, perfectly aligned. But when Shah Jahan died, decades later, his cenotaph was placed beside hers, slightly to the west, off-center, breaking the symmetry. It is the only asymmetrical element in the entire complex, and some have said, perhaps fancifully, that this is fitting, that the Taj Mahal was built for Mumtaz, and Shah Jahan, arriving late, uninvited by the original design, disrupted the perfection that even in death he was reaching toward her, but could never quite reach the center. The construction took approximately 22 years, from 1632 to roughly 1653, though the exact completion date is debated. Some scholars believe the mausoleum itself was finished by 1643, with the remaining decade devoted to the gardens, gates, and ancillary buildings. The landscape around the Taj Mahal was itself part of the design. Shah Jahan did not simply build a tomb and place it in a garden. He reshaped the entire riverbank. The Yamuna was incorporated into the composition, its broad, slow-moving waters serving as a natural mirror that extended the garden's geometry into infinity. On the far bank of the river, directly opposite the Taj Mahal, was the Mehtab Bagh, the Moonlight Garden, a large garden that provided a viewing platform for the mausoleum. You could sit there in the evening as the light faded and the moon rose, and watch the white dome emerge from the darkening sky like a second moon rising from the earth. The garden is partially ruined today, but archaeologists have excavated its layout and confirmed its alignment with the main complex. It was not incidental, it was designed, part of the vision, part of the experience. Shah Jahan understood something that many architects forget. A building does not exist in isolation. It exists in a landscape, in a climate, in a quality of light. And the greatest buildings are those that embrace their setting, that become part of it, that cannot be imagined anywhere else. The Taj Mahal without the Yamuna is unthinkable. The Taj Mahal without the flat, hazy, sun-drenched landscape of the Gangetic Plain is unthinkable. It belongs here. It could only be here. The cost was staggering. Contemporary accounts suggest it was around 32 million rupees, an almost meaningless figure to us today, but to put it in perspective, it was enough to bankrupt a lesser kingdom. The Mughal Empire was the wealthiest state on earth at the time, and even so, the Taj Mahal consumed a significant portion of the imperial treasury. Materials came from across the known world: marble from Rajasthan, sandstone from Fatehpur Sikri, jasper from Punjab, jade from China, crystal from Central Asia, turquoise from Tibet, lapis lazuli from Afghanistan, sapphire from Sri Lanka, carnelian from Arabia. The Taj Mahal is, in a sense, a map of the medieval trade routes, a physical record of the vast network of commerce and exchange that connected Asia, the Middle East, and Europe in the 17th century. And all of it, every stone, every gem, every drop of mortar, was assembled by human hands. There were no machines, no cranes powered by steam or electricity, just muscle, animal and human, guided by mathematics and craft, and an almost inconceivable attention to detail. Let us speak of the calligraphy, because the Taj Mahal is not merely decorated with words, it is dressed in them. The inscriptions that frame the great arched doorways of the mausoleum are passages from the Quran. They were designed by a master calligrapher named Amanat Khan, one of the very few individual craftsmen whose name we actually know. He was so proud of his work, and Shah Jahan was so pleased with it, that the calligrapher was permitted to sign his name on the monument. You can find it inscribed in small letters near the base of the interior dome. Amanat Khan Shirazi, a rare honor, and a measure of the extraordinary quality of his work. The script is Thulath, a flowing, elegant style of Arabic calligraphy that was favored for monumental inscriptions. The letters are inlaid in black marble against the white surface, creating a contrast that is legible from a considerable distance. But here is the clever part. As the inscriptions rise higher on the building, the letters become progressively larger. This compensates for the effect of perspective, so that to a person standing below, all the letters appear to be the same size. It is a subtle optical correction, invisible unless you know to look for it, but it speaks to the extraordinary sophistication of the design. The passages chosen are not random. They are carefully selected to reinforce the theme of the building. Surah 89, the dawn, Surah 36, Yasin, the heart of the Quran, which speaks of resurrection and the life after death. Surah 67, the sovereignty of God over all creation. Together, they create a theological program, a journey from the earthly world through judgment to paradise, and the Taj Mahal itself, with its gardens representing paradise and its dome reaching toward heaven, is the architectural embodiment of that journey. The acoustics of the burial chamber deserve mention as well. The chamber beneath the great dome produces a remarkable reverberation. A single note, a spoken word, a clap of hands, echoes for nearly 28 seconds. The sound rolls around the dome and returns, softened, transformed, like a whisper becoming a prayer. This was almost certainly intentional. The Mughals were sophisticated acousticians. They understood that a domed space would amplify and sustain sound, and in a tomb, where Quranic verses would be recited and prayers would be offered for the soul of the deceased, a long reverberation would give every word weight and majesty. The architecture itself would become part of the prayer. Stand in that chamber today, even as a tourist, even surrounded by a crowd, and whisper something. The dome catches your voice and holds it, wraps it around you, returns it to you changed. It is an uncanny experience, as if the building is listening, as if the stone remembers every prayer ever spoken within its walls. Let us also consider the workers, 20,000 of them, and we know almost nothing about their individual lives. They were builders and carvers and haulers and diggers. They came from across the empire, drawn by the promise of wages or compelled by imperial decree. They lived in a temporary settlement near the construction site, a place the chronicles called Mumtazabad, the city of Mumtaz. What was their daily life like? We can imagine, rising before dawn, walking to the site in the grey half-light, taking up their tools, the chisels and hammers and trowels and plumb lines, and beginning the slow, patient work of turning an emperor's vision into reality. The heat in summer would have been crushing. Agra sits on the Gangetic plain, flat and exposed, and temperatures in June and July regularly exceed 45 degrees. The monsoon rains would have turned the site into a lake of mud. And the winters, while mild by European standards, brought cold nights and morning fog that clung to the river. They worked for decades. A generation of men grew old on this project. Some would have started as young apprentices and finished as grey-haired masters. Some would have been born in Mumtazabad, the children of workers, growing up in the shadow of the rising dome. Some would have died there, from accidents, from disease, from the simple attrition of hard labor in difficult conditions. Their names are lost, their stories are lost, but their work remains. Every precisely cut stone, every perfectly aligned joint, every flower petal carved from marble so fine that it seems to tremble in the light, is the work of their hands. The Taj Mahal is Shah Jahan's monument to Mumtaz, but it is also, whether anyone intended it or not, a monument to the 20,000 unnamed people who built it. While the Taj Mahal was rising, Shah Jahan's empire continued to function around it, and it was functioning magnificently. This was the golden age of Mughal India, the period of greatest wealth, greatest cultural achievement, greatest power. Shah Jahan commissioned the Peacock Throne, the most lavish piece of royal furniture ever created. It was encrusted with rubies and emeralds and sapphires and diamonds, including the Koh-i-Noor, the Mountain of Light, one of the largest diamonds in the world. The throne was valued at twice the cost of the Taj Mahal itself. It was a statement of wealth so extravagant that European visitors who saw it could scarcely believe their eyes. He built the Red Fort in Delhi, a massive complex of palaces and audience halls and gardens and barracks enclosed by walls of red sandstone that stretched for 2 kilometers along the Yamuna. The Red Fort was not merely a residence. It was the administrative heart of the empire, a city within a city, the place from which 100 million people were governed. He built the Jama Masjid, also in Delhi, the largest mosque in India, a vast, austere, magnificent space where 25,000 worshippers could pray simultaneously. Its red sandstone and white marble echoed the visual language of the Taj Mahal, but where the Taj was intimate and lyrical, the Jama Masjid was grand and severe, two different expressions of the same architectural mind. He transformed the interior of Agra Fort, replacing his grandfather Akbar's red sandstone apartments with new chambers of white marble inlaid with precious stones. The Diwan-i-Khas, the hall of private audience, contained the legendary inscription, "If there is a paradise on earth, it is this, it is this, it is this." A boast, perhaps, but not an empty one. The room was spectacularly beautiful. Shah Jahan's court was the most splendid in the world. European travelers who visited it were stunned. The French jeweler Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, who saw both Versailles and the Mughal court, declared the latter incomparably more magnificent. The emperor sat on his jeweled throne, surrounded by courtiers in silk and gold, receiving ambassadors from Persia and Central Asia and the Ottoman Empire and the fledgling European trading companies, dispensing justice and patronage and terror with equal facility. And throughout all of this, through the wars and the building projects and the court intrigues and the governance of an empire, the Taj Mahal was always the center, always the most important thing, the thing that mattered most. And there is a legend, widely repeated though difficult to verify, that Shah Jahan intended to build a second Taj Mahal, a black Taj, on the opposite bank of the Yamuna River, directly across from the white one. It would have been his own tomb, a mirror image in black marble, connected to the Taj Mahal by a silver bridge spanning the river. It is a beautiful idea. A white tomb for the beloved wife, a black tomb for the grieving husband, facing each other across the water for eternity. But it was never built, and most modern scholars believe it was never seriously planned. The legend may have originated from the observations of a French traveler named Jean-Baptiste Tavernier, who visited Agra in 1665 and saw foundations being laid on the far bank. But those foundations were likely for a moonlight garden. a pleasure garden designed to provide a viewing platform for the Taj Mahal, not for a second mausoleum. The garden was eventually built. You can still see its remains across the river, and on moonlit nights, if you stand there among the old walls and overgrown pathways, you can look across the Yamuna and see the Taj Mahal exactly as Shah Jahan intended, shimmering, glowing, impossibly beautiful against the dark sky. There is a detail about the construction that I find particularly moving: the scaffolding. When the dome was being built, the workers erected an enormous scaffold of brick, not wood, a forest of brick pillars and arches that rose from the ground floor to the top of the dome, a temporary structure so massive that it was itself a feat of engineering. Some accounts say that when the dome was completed, Shah Jahan was told it would take 5 years to dismantle the scaffolding. 5 years of careful, painstaking work, removing the brick supports without damaging the marble they had supported. Shah Jahan found a faster solution. He announced that any peasant who wished to could come and take away the bricks. For free, the word spread, and within days, thousands of people had descended on the construction site, carrying away bricks by the cartload. The scaffolding was dismantled in a matter of weeks. The bricks became houses and walls and ovens across the surrounding countryside, and the dome, the great white dome, was revealed for the first time, standing on its own, floating above the mausoleum like a prayer made visible. Whether this story is true, we cannot say for certain, but it has the flavor of truth. It sounds like something a Mughal emperor would do, pragmatic and theatrical in equal measure. Now comes the saddest part of our story. In 1657, Shah Jahan fell seriously ill. He was 65 years old, and his 4 sons, sensing that the end might be near, began to fight over the succession. Mughal succession was not determined by primogeniture, not automatically passed to the eldest son. It was determined by strength, by cunning, by whoever could seize the throne and hold it. The resulting war was brutal. Brother fought brother. Armies clashed across the subcontinent, and in the end, it was Aurangzeb, Shah Jahan's 3rd son, the most ruthless and most capable of the 4, who emerged victorious. Aurangzeb was a devout Muslim, austere, disciplined, suspicious of luxury and beauty. He was everything his father was not. Where Shah Jahan had built palaces and gardens and tombs of exquisite beauty, Aurangzeb would spend his reign fighting wars and expanding the empire's borders. Where Shah Jahan had patronized poets and painters and musicians, Aurangzeb would ban music from the court. Aurangzeb's brothers fared terribly. Dura Shikoh, the eldest, the scholar prince whom Shah Jahan had favored, was captured, paraded through the streets of Delhi in chains, and executed. His head was sent to Aurangzeb in a box. Shuja, the 2nd brother, fled to Burma and was never heard from again. Murad, the youngest, was arrested under false pretenses, tried for murder, and beheaded. This was the Mughal way. The price of the throne was paid in blood, always. And one of Aurangzeb's first acts as emperor was to imprison his father. Shah Jahan was confined to the Musaman Burj, a beautiful octagonal tower within Agra fort, overlooking the Yamuna River. It was a gilded cage, comfortable, luxurious even, but a prison nonetheless. And from his window, Shah Jahan could see the Taj Mahal. Imagine him there, an old man now, sick, defeated, stripped of his power and his throne, sitting by a marble-screened window in the tower, looking out across the river, at the building he had spent 22 years creating, the tomb of the woman he had loved more than his empire, more than his life. The Musaman Burj is a beautiful prison, an octagonal tower of white marble, open to the air on several sides, with delicate jali screens and carved pillars and inlaid floors. It was originally built as a pleasure pavilion, a place for the emperor to enjoy the evening breeze and the view of the river. Now it was a cage, a comfortable cage, furnished with carpets and cushions and attended by servants, but a cage nonetheless. Shah Jahan's world had shrunk to the size of a room. The man who had commanded armies and built cities and ruled 100 million people could now command nothing, go nowhere, do nothing, except look. He would watch the Taj Mahal at dawn, when the first light of day turned the marble from grey to rose pink, as if the stone were blushing. He would watch it at noon, when it blazed white against the hard blue sky, so bright it hurt the eyes. He would watch it at sunset, when the low golden light transformed the marble into liquid amber, and the dome seemed to glow from within like a lantern, and he would watch it at night, when the moon turned it to silver, and the stars hung above it like scattered diamonds. Each time of day, the building was different. Each time of day, it was beautiful, and each time, it must have reminded him of her. Did he talk to her? Did he whisper across the river, across the gardens and the marble and the silence, telling her about his day, about the food Jahangir had brought him, about the birds he had watched from his window, about the way the light fell on the dome at 3 o'clock on a Thursday afternoon in October? We cannot know, but we can imagine, and imagining is sometimes enough. His health declined steadily. The imperial physicians attended him, but there was little they could do. He was old, he was broken. The fire that had driven him to build empires and tombs and thrones of jeweled gold had gone out. Only the ember of his love remained, and even that, in the end, was not enough to keep him alive. The seasons turned, the monsoon rains came and went, the river rose and fell, the gardens below the fort wall bloomed and faded and bloomed again, and Shah Jahan sat in his tower and watched. For 8 years, from 1658 to 1666, this was his world, the view from the window, the Taj Mahal, and his memories. His daughter Jahangir stayed with him. She had chosen to share his imprisonment rather than leave him alone. She read to him, she brought him food, she held his hand as his eyesight began to fail. In his final years, he could no longer see the Taj Mahal clearly. It was a blur, a ghost of white against the sky, but he knew it was there. He had always known it was there. Shah Jahan died on the 22nd of January, 1666. He was 74 years old, and his body was taken from Agra Fort, carried down to the river, brought across to the Taj Mahal, and laid to rest beside Mumtaz. Together again, after 35 years. There is a story, probably apocryphal, that Shah Jahan's dying wish was to be placed so that he could see the face of Mumtaz. His cenotaph is oriented so that it faces toward hers. Whether this was his instruction or a later embellishment of the legend, it is a detail that resonates, even in death, reaching toward her. Jahangir, the loyal daughter who had shared his imprisonment, was buried in a simple open-air tomb in Delhi by her own request. She had written, "Let nothing cover my grave save the green grass, for grass is the best covering for the grave of the lowly." The contrast with her father's tomb, the most opulent in history, is striking. Perhaps she understood something that Shah Jahan, for all his genius, could not. That love does not require marble. That grief does not need a monument. That sometimes The simplest grave is the most eloquent. But the Taj Mahal was built, and it stands, and perhaps that is enough. Perhaps the question of whether it was necessary, whether all that wealth and labor could have been spent more wisely, is the wrong question. Perhaps the right question is simply, is it beautiful? And to that question, there is only one answer. The Taj Mahal was never meant to stand alone in history. It was meant to be the center of a living complex, maintained by a vast endowment of shops, markets, and caravanserais whose rents would pay for the building's upkeep. Shah Jahan had planned for eternity. He had endowed the tomb with income-producing properties in Agra and elsewhere, enough to pay for gardeners and guards and maintenance workers in perpetuity. But perpetuity is a long time, and empires do not last forever. But even as Shah Jahan looked out from his window, the world was changing. The Mughal empire that he had inherited and adorned was beginning to crack beneath the weight of Aurangzeb's ambitions. Under Aurangzeb, the Mughal Empire reached its greatest territorial extent. It stretched from Kabul in the northwest to Bengal in the east, from Kashmir in the north to the tip of the Deccan in the south. It was enormous, but it was also overstretched, and it was beginning to fracture. The emperor's endless wars drained the treasury. His religious policies alienated the Hindu majority. Regional governors grew powerful and independent. By the time Aurangzeb died in 1707, the empire was already cracking. The century that followed was one of slow decline. The Mughals remained nominally in power, but their authority shrank year by year. Agra was sacked by Persian invaders in 1739, by Afghan raiders in the 1750s, by Maratha warriors in the 1770s. Each time, the Taj Mahal was spared the worst of the destruction, but the gardens fell into neglect. The water channels dried up. The income from the endowed properties dwindled and disappeared. Squatters moved into the ancillary buildings. Thieves prized semi-precious stones from the walls and sold them in the markets. The Taj Mahal was not destroyed, but it was diminished. Slowly, gradually, the forest crept in. Weeds grew in the marble joints. Trees sprouted from the terraces. The reflecting pool became a shallow, stagnant puddle. The building that Shah Jahan had imagined lasting forever was being eaten alive by time and neglect. There are accounts from the late 18th century that describe the gardens as a wilderness, the channels choked with debris, the fountains silent. The mausoleum itself remained intact, too massive and too well built to be seriously damaged by anything short of deliberate demolition. But the surrounding buildings were crumbling. The bazaars and caravanserais that had once funded the complex's maintenance were empty or occupied by squatters. The mosque still functioned, but barely. The whole complex had the air of a beautiful corpse, still recognizably magnificent, but unmistakably dead. Some visitors during this period found the decay romantic. There was a fashion in Europe for ruins, for the melancholy beauty of fallen greatness. The overgrown Taj Mahal, with its crumbling walls and wild gardens and the white dome rising above the chaos like a ghost, fitted this aesthetic perfectly. Artists sketched it, poets wrote about it, and some travelers declared that the ruin was more beautiful than the original could ever have been. They were wrong, of course, but one can understand the sentiment. There is something powerful about seeing the greatest work of human architecture slowly being reclaimed by nature. It reminds us that nothing lasts, not even love letters written in marble. And then the British arrived. The East India Company had been trading in India since the early 1600s, almost as long as the Taj Mahal had existed. British merchants had established trading posts at Surat and Bombay and Madras and Calcutta, small footholds on the coast of a vast and wealthy continent. They traded in cotton and silk and spices and indigo, and they watched the Mughal Empire with a mixture of admiration and avarice. In the 18th and 19th centuries, as the Mughal Empire fractured and rival powers fought over its remains, the company transformed from a commercial enterprise into a colonial power. Through a combination of military force, diplomatic cunning, and sheer opportunism, it conquered territory after territory, deposing rulers, imposing treaties, and eventually taking control of nearly the entire subcontinent. By 1857, the last Mughal emperor was a pensioner in his own palace, a puppet of the British, ruling over nothing but a few rooms and a handful of servants. The British attitude toward the Taj Mahal was complicated. Many were genuinely awestruck. The building's beauty transcended cultural boundaries. British visitors wrote rapturous descriptions in their journals and letters, comparing it to heaven, to a dream, to something beyond the capacity of words. But others were less reverent. Some British officers used the gardens as a picnic ground, spreading tablecloths on the marble plinth and setting up cricket stumps on the lawns. Others helped themselves to souvenirs, prizing loose stones from the walls and carrying them home to England. The Taj Mahal's semi-precious stone inlays were particularly popular targets. Visitors would chip away at the Pietra Dura with penknives, extracting tiny pieces of cornelian or lapis lazuli to mount in rings or brooches. The damage was cumulative and significant. Lord William Bentinck, the Governor-General of India in the 1830s, reportedly considered dismantling the Taj Mahal and selling the marble. This plan, if it ever existed beyond rumor, was abandoned. Some say it was because test sales of marble from other Mughal buildings proved unprofitable. Others say it was because the outcry was too great. Either way, the Taj Mahal survived. It was Lord Curzon, the Viceroy of India at the turn of the 20th century, who finally undertook a serious restoration. Curzon was an imperialist through and through, but he was also a man who genuinely loved Indian architecture. He was appalled by the state of the Taj Mahal when he first saw it in 1899. The gardens were overgrown, the marble was stained, the inlay work was damaged, the lamp that hung in the burial chamber, a beautiful piece donated by Curzon's predecessor, had been replaced by a cheap brass copy. Curzon ordered a comprehensive restoration that took years. The gardens were replanted, the water channels were repaired, the marble was cleaned, a new lamp was commissioned, this one based on a design from a mosque in Cairo, made of bronze and gilded with gold. It still hangs in the chamber today. The restoration was not without controversy. Some Indians resented the implication that they could not care for their own heritage, and there were legitimate criticisms of the British approach, which sometimes imposed European aesthetic standards on Mughal design. But the physical fabric of the building was saved. Without Curzon's intervention, the Taj Mahal might have deteriorated beyond recovery. During the Second World War, the Taj Mahal faced an unusual threat. In 1942, as Japanese forces advanced through Southeast Asia and bombers began to reach the eastern borders of India, the government erected scaffolding around the dome, not to restore it, but to disguise it. The white marble dome, visible for miles in the flat landscape, would have been an easy navigational landmark for enemy aircraft. The scaffolding was draped with cloth and bamboo, making the Taj Mahal look, from the air, like an ordinary construction site rather than a priceless monument. The precaution was taken again in 1965 and 1971 during India's wars with Pakistan. Each time, the dome was covered. Each time, the building was hidden from the sky like a jewel tucked beneath a cloth. There is something poignant about this, something almost tender. A nation wrapping its most precious possession in camouflage, hiding it from harm, the way a mother might shield a child. In the decades following independence, the Taj Mahal became the subject of intense scholarly study. Archaeologists and art historians from India and around the world examined every aspect of the building, its materials, its construction techniques, its decorative programs, its historical context. They discovered things that the naked eye could never see. Microscopic analysis of the marble revealed the specific geological formation from which it was quarried, confirming the Makrana origin and revealing the presence of trace minerals that contribute to its translucency. Chemical analysis of the inlay work identified the precise sources of the semi-precious stones, some from mines that no longer exist. Structural surveys using ground-penetrating radar revealed the full extent of the foundation system, the well shafts extending down to bedrock, and confirmed that the foundation was in remarkably good condition after nearly 4 centuries. The engineers who designed it, whoever they were, had built far better than they could have known. And architectural analysis revealed the extraordinary mathematical precision of the design. The proportions of the building, the ratios of width to height, dome to drum, arch to wall, follow a consistent system of geometric relationships. Some scholars have identified the use of the golden ratio. Others have found evidence of a modular system, a basic unit of measurement from which all other dimensions are derived. The debate continues. But what is clear is that nothing about the Taj Mahal is accidental. Every dimension, every angle, every curve was calculated. India gained independence in 1947, and the Taj Mahal, this building created by a Mughal emperor for his Persian-born wife, became one of the most powerful symbols of the new nation. It appeared on postage stamps and banknotes. It was reproduced in miniature in every tourist shop from Delhi to Mumbai. It became, more than any other single image, the face of India, the thing that people around the world thought of when they thought of this vast, complicated, ancient, modern, impossibly diverse country. This was not without irony. The Mughals had been Muslim rulers of a predominantly Hindu land. The Taj Mahal was an Islamic tomb, adorned with Quranic verses, built according to Islamic architectural traditions, and yet it transcended these categories. It belonged to everyone, Hindus and Muslims and Sikhs and Christians and atheists and people who had never thought about religion at all, could look at the Taj Mahal and feel something beyond doctrine, beyond identity, something simply human. UNESCO designated the Taj Mahal a World Heritage Site in 1983. The citation described it as the jewel of Muslim art in India and one of the universally admired masterpieces of the world's heritage. The Taj Mahal has inspired imitation around the world, though none has come close to matching the original. There is the Bibi Ka Maqbara in Aurangabad, built by Aurangzeb's son in the 1660s as a tribute to his own mother. It is sometimes called the poor man's Taj Mahal, and while it is a handsome building, it lacks the Makrana marble, the Pietra Dura, the mathematical perfection of the original. The comparison is unfair but inevitable. There are Taj Mahal replicas in Bangladesh, in China, in Dubai, in Atlantic City. Some are earnest tributes, others are kitsch. None captures the quality that makes the original extraordinary, that quality of seeming both real and impossible at the same time. You can copy the shape of the Taj Mahal, you can copy its proportions, but you cannot copy the 4 centuries of monsoons and moonlight that have seasoned its marble. You cannot copy the grief that built it. You cannot copy the love. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about the Taj Mahal is not its beauty. It is its universality. In a world divided by religion and politics and culture and language, this building speaks to everyone. It has been claimed by nationalists and romantics and art historians and tourists and poets and engineers and lovers and the grieving. It belongs to none of them. It belongs to all of them. Rabindranath Tagore, India's Nobel laureate poet, called it a teardrop on the cheek of time. The phrase is so perfect that it has become almost as famous as the building itself. A teardrop, not a jewel, not a crown, a tear, something born of sorrow. Something that catches the light because it is wet with grief. And yet, and this is what makes it extraordinary, there is no sorrow in the experience of seeing the Taj Mahal. There is wonder, there is peace. There is a strange, almost physical sensation of beauty pressing against the inside of your chest. The building transforms its own origin story. Grief becomes grace, loss becomes beauty. Pain becomes this. But the Taj Mahal faces threats that Shah Jahan could never have imagined. The most visible is air pollution. Agra is an industrial city, home to thousands of small factories, iron foundries, and tanneries. The smoke and particulate matter from these industries, combined with vehicle exhaust from the city's chaotic traffic, create a toxic haze that settles on the marble and stains it yellow. In the 1990s, the Indian Supreme Court established a protective zone around the Taj Mahal, the Taj Trapezium Zone, banning polluting industries within a 10,000 square kilometer area. Hundreds of factories were closed or relocated. Vehicle restrictions were imposed near the monument. Electric vehicles replaced diesel buses on the approach roads. A green belt was planted around the complex to filter particulates from the air. The improvement was real. But incomplete. The air in Agra remains far from clean, and the marble continues to yellow, slowly, imperceptibly, like a white shirt that has been washed too many times in hard water. The insects are a particular problem. Swarms of Goldichironomus, a species of midge that breeds in the polluted Yamuna, descend on the Taj Mahal in the evenings. Their excrement leaves green and black stains on the marble. The only permanent solution would be to clean the river itself, a project that has been discussed and promised and planned and postponed for decades. Until then, the conservation teams continue their patient work, cleaning and polishing and protecting. 1 square meter at a time. The Yamuna River, which once reflected the Taj Mahal in its clear waters, is now one of the most polluted rivers in India. Sewage and industrial waste flow into it upstream of Agra, turning it dark and foul-smelling. The insects that breed in the polluted water leave dark stains on the marble. Conservation teams regularly apply mud packs to the surface, a traditional cleaning technique called Multani Mitti, to draw out the discoloration. But it is an endless battle. And then there is the river itself. The Yamuna has been shrinking for decades, its water diverted upstream for irrigation and industry. The reduced flow has lowered the water table around the Taj Mahal, and some engineers worry that the wooden foundations, the ancient well shafts filled with timber and rubble, may be drying out and cracking if the foundations shift, even slightly. The structural consequences could be catastrophic. There is also the sheer pressure of tourism. Millions of visitors a year means thousands of people walking across the marble plinth every day. Their feet wear the stone. Their breath raises the humidity inside the mausoleum. Their sheer numbers create a management challenge that Shah Jahan could never have anticipated. In recent years, the Indian government has introduced measures to limit the damage. Visitor numbers are capped, time limits are imposed, the most fragile areas are roped off, and a comprehensive conservation program involving Indian and international experts continues to monitor and maintain the monument. It is a race against time. The forces of pollution and erosion and climate change are patient and relentless, but so are the people who love the Taj Mahal, and so far, love is winning. Despite these challenges, the Taj Mahal endures. 7 to 8 million people visit it every year. They come from every country on earth. They come alone and in groups and in families. They come as tourists and pilgrims and scholars and lovers. They stand at the Great Gate at the southern end of the gardens, and they look north and they see it. And almost without exception, they fall silent. That is the thing about the Taj Mahal that no photograph can capture. The silence it creates, the way it stops you in your tracks, the way it makes the noise inside your head, the worry, the planning, the endless mental chatter go quiet for a moment. For just a moment, you are not thinking about anything at all. You are simply looking, simply seeing, simply being present with something so beautiful that it makes everything else seem irrelevant. There is a time of day and a time of night when the Taj Mahal is at its most extraordinary, and it is now, late at night, when the tourists have gone and the gates are closed and the gardens are empty and the only sound is the water moving through the channels and the insects singing in the trees. The moon is up, full or nearly full, and the Taj Mahal is glowing. 5 times a month, on the nights of the full moon and the 2 nights on either side of it, the Taj Mahal is open to visitors after dark. Small groups, no more than 400, are admitted between 8:30 and 12:30. They enter through the Great Gate in near silence. They walk the garden paths in the dark, guided by nothing but the moonlight and the soft glow of the marble ahead. No flashlights are permitted, no camera flashes, just eyes, adjusting slowly to the silver world. Those who have seen the Taj Mahal by moonlight say it is an experience they will never forget. The building seems to hover above the plinth like a ghost. The marble absorbs the moonlight and redistributes it, glowing from every surface simultaneously, as if lit from within by some cold, gentle fire. The minarets cast shadows that stretch across the gardens like the hands of a great clock, and the silence, the absolute velvet silence of a monument at rest, wraps around you like a blanket. Not lit from below by floodlights, not the artificial brightness of a tourist attraction, but glowing from within. The marble, that extraordinary Makrana marble, is absorbing the moonlight and giving it back, slowly, gently, as if the stone itself is dreaming. The dome is a soft silver, the minarets are darker, their shadows stretching across the plinth like the hands of a clock that has stopped. The reflecting pool is perfectly still, a sheet of liquid mercury, doubling everything, and the gardens, The ancient, patient gardens are full of shadow and silence and the faint, sweet scent of night-blooming jasmine. Shah Jahan could not have known, when he first drew breath in that palace in Lahore 430 years ago, that his grief would become the most beautiful building on earth. He could not have known that the girl in the Meena Bazaar would change the shape of architecture forever. He could not have known that his tears would crystallize into marble and moonlight and become something that would make strangers weep with wonder centuries after his death. But that is what happened. That is what love did. The Taj Mahal is not just a building. It is proof that love exists, proof that grief can create as well as destroy, proof that the human heart, this small, fragile, easily broken thing, is capable of producing something that the whole world agrees is beautiful. 400 years ago, a man lost the woman he loved, and instead of letting his grief consume him, instead of letting it turn to bitterness or madness or despair, he poured it into the earth. He gathered 20,000 pairs of hands. He gathered marble from the hills of Rajasthan and jade from China and lapis from Afghanistan and sapphires from Sri Lanka. And he said, "Build me something beautiful. Build me something that will last. Build me something that proves she was here." And they did. And tonight, as you lie here, letting sleep come close, I want you to hold that thought gently, that love endures, that beauty matters, that even in the darkest moment of loss, something extraordinary can be born. The Taj Mahal is still there. It will be there tomorrow. It will be there when you wake. It has waited 400 years, patient and luminous and impossibly beautiful on the banks of the Yamuna. And it will wait for you. Rest now, let the marble glow fade behind your eyelids. Let the sound of the water channels carry you somewhere soft and warm and safe. The minarets are standing guard. The dome is holding the moonlight, and the gardens are full of jasmine and silence. Sleep well, sleep deeply. Good night. Thank you for listening, and sweet dreams. If you enjoyed this, there are more stories waiting for you.